didn't expect me to actually show up, but I did. It's a very moody day. Very moody indeed. Outside. I'm a little bit sniffly, a bit congested. Got some mango, which looks a little bit slimy, I'm not gonna lie, but it still looks tasty. My eyes felt dry for about 3 days straight now. A little bit headachy. You know how it is. But I'm in a good mood. And have been for a little while. So, I'm gonna play some Zomboid. Probably gonna go say hi to Billy. Pretty sure he's still logged in. Do some base building, drop off an axe, and organize the stash of weaponry for the raid. And maybe do some loot and have some fun. Not that the rest isn't fun. The whole thing's fun. Yeah, that bird agrees. Let's go try something new. Chuck some content on the screen. Just to see how that goes. So, what's to look forward to today? It's going to be busy. It's going to be good. So let's try this. What I'm going to do during this stream, which has been going on for 11 minutes where I didn't do anything, which is quite funny. We're going to chuck a video on for my ADHD Andes, including myself. I'm going to watch some YouTube together, hopefully. Now, I read the rules, the community rules, and the copyright law. Providing I credit what we're watching, maybe provide some kind of commentary, then we're fine. It's purely because I'm not very entertaining. I can be, but not all the time. So we chuck some content on screen. Tiny little window. I think we'll be fine. It also just gives us something to look at when there's nothing happening on screen. Like you can't see my screen now. You'll be able to in a minute. But yeah, for periods like what's happening to me in game right now, a little bit of content's good. It feels weird there not being content now because I don't even have music playing. Usually I would have music playing, just like some ambience. But not today. Because we're going to try this. Are you ready?
It's the early hours of February 11th,
Here we have
2022.
8 Poncho.
21-year-old Sakib Hussain and Mohammed Hashim Ijazuddin are captured
It
on
feels
surveillance
quiet,
camera
and I
footage
can't
entering
tell
a Tesco supermarket in the Hamilton area of
if
Leicester,
that's
England. The boys have
because
just made a
of
rough
my
60-mile trip from Banbury,
settings. Where's my
Oxfordshire,
cursor
to
at?
Leicester in order to collect £3,000
Can I see my
from a
cursor
46-year-old
in
woman
game?
by the name of Ansreen Bakari. However, ladies and gentlemen, the money
That's
would
tricky.
never be handed over.
I can see my
Instead, a
cursor
rough
in game
10-mile
in the
pursuit
stream
by two
window.
separate cars would be
Hold on.
underway. The result of the 100 miles per hour.
Whoa. When I change between scenes on OBS, my cursor disappears. What the fuck? What if I'm like not in the game when I do it? What? It's not there. That's weird. What? Hold on. I think I know why. Roll the music. I'm going to be changing settings live. This one. Properties. I still don't see my cursor. But I do in the OBS window. What? That's so weird. What the hell? Like, you can see it on stream. I don't see my cursor in game. What? I have to navigate the options via the stream window. This is so stupid. What if we're in full screen? No. What? Interesting. Bear with me, please. Boom. Fixed it. How strange is that? That's so peculiar. Well, glad that's a setting in Zomboid. I never would have guessed that is a setting in Zomboid, but it is. Cool. So back to windowed mode, please. Yep, done. It's definitely not borderless. Yeah, okay, cool. Alright. That was strange. But I think we're back. Yeah, we are. Let's try that again, shall we?
It's the early hours of February 11th, 2022. 21-year-old Sakib Hussain and Mohammed Hashim Ijazuddin are captured on surveillance camera footage entering the Tesco supermarket in the Hamilton area of Leicester, England. The boys have just made a rough 60-mile trip from Banbury in Oxfordshire to Leicester in order to collect £3,000 from a 46-year-old woman by the name of Ansreen Bakari. However, ladies and gentlemen, the money would never be handed over. Instead, a rough 10-mile pursuit by two separate cars would be underway. The result of the 100 miles per hour chase would sadly leave both young men dead after one of the pursuing cars rammed into the car carrying the boys. Ultimately, their car would spin out, flip, and fly into a central reservation. It was cut into two after hitting a tree. Come with me then as we take a deep dive into this complex police investigation.
What did that guy just say, by the way? Someone's counted too?
And then 20-year-old Mehek Bakari, aka Baby Vlogs, posted her first TikTok video alongside her mother Ansreen. Over the following months, Mehek decided this was where she wanted her life to go. She wanted to be TikTok's next biggest star. And to be fair, although we've said that about many other influencers in the past, she was actually on the way to becoming huge on the platform. In fact, she had started to gain that much traction on her dance, makeup, and daily life videos that she decided to drop out of her Manchester University course to put all of her effort into not just TikTok, but rather YouTube, Instagram, and Snapchat as well. We were quite proud because I wasn't allowed to go to university and I wanted my daughter to go. She wanted to be more on Instagram as an influencer and on TikTok. We weren't disappointed. Ansreen Bakari, Mehek's mother, was supportive throughout her daughter's social media career. So much in fact that she decided to adopt the role of a manager, although that would never be official. Ansreen's early life consisted of humble beginnings. She had immigrated to Stoke-on-Trent in the United Kingdom from Pakistan as a baby. She would go on to live in the city for her whole life. I had dreams of becoming an air hostess, but my parents were quite strict, so I was never allowed to go to college to study to become one. Instead, Ansreen found employment working at a local factory when she graduated from secondary school. Soon after, she found herself working as a delivery driver for a pharmacy. Over the course of her 8-year tenure at the pharmacy, the owners decided they wanted to give her a promotion. So they paid for her to do a course so she could handle prescriptions for patients. It wasn't all happy days at the company though, and towards the end of that 8-year period, a dispute broke out about holiday entitlement. That dispute resulted in Ansreen parting ways with the pharmacy. She wouldn't be out of employment for long though. Given her experience and qualifications, she was able to find employment at a local Superdrug store only months later. She worked there until late 2019. Ansreen Bakari was able to find employment with the Department of Work and Pensions and doing debt management months after leaving Superdrug. The job allowed her to work from home as the coronavirus pandemic was fully underway. However, once Mehek's social media career had begun to blossom, she ditched her job to basically become her manager. Mehek started to post on TikTok and Instagram. Clothing companies started to approach her when she started to gain a following. She had to wear clothes and tag the brand. Her social media career led to a lot of travel. I went with her so she wasn't alone. If she was alone, there was time limits, so she had to come back. Her Instagram was gaining a huge following, and she was getting a lot of promotions. I would stay up late and go with her. Sometimes the job involved both of us staying overnight in hotels. We travelled to London, Manchester, Birmingham, and Bradford. Mehek's father encouraged me to travel with her. He knew that she could trust me and I would be there to take care of her. My life before Mehek's social media career was fairly normal. I'd cook, clean and go to work throughout the week. However, when she took social media more seriously, I began to go out on the weekends with her. It was exciting. We were out and about, meeting people and stuff. And it would be this newfound excitement, this new life that happened to land at Ansreen's feet, that would be the catalyst to the crash that would ultimately take place on February 11th, 2022.
Drive like a maniac. Not very good.
At some point in early 2020, Ansreen and Mehek had been with Ansreen's nieces, Mehek's cousins. They had posted on TikTok and decided to engage with other young people on social media. After all, the national lockdown was fully underway by this point, so it's to no surprise that they opted to use this method to connect with new people. The app of choice for the girls was Azar, a live video app similar to Omegle, but more preference settings can be chosen in order to find someone who potentially could spark a friendship or relationship with. Enters a then 18-year-old Saqib Hussain. Not much is known about Saqib's initial interactions with the girls, other than Ansreen's niece explaining to him that Mehek was a TikToker who by that point had a couple semi-viral videos and that her mum was present with them. Saqib and Ansreen shared a hi, how are you, but that was it. Nothing else really came from it. I found him attractive, but I didn't expect to hear from him ever again. 2 days later though, Saqib had followed Mehek on Instagram, went through her follow list and found Ansreen. He sent a DM. Hey, do you remember me? No, I don't. Ansreen asked Mehek if she recognized him. She did. She remembered him from Azar. The light bulb went off in Ansreen's head. We started talking from there. We were chatting every day, so we exchanged numbers. After we exchanged numbers, he would call every day. It would be 5 times. I didn't think it was strange in the beginning. To cut a long story short, Ansreen and Saqib had an affair behind her husband's back between early 2020 through to December 2021. We know of at least 11 occasions where they were present together, at parties, events, shisha lounges and restaurants. On at least 2 occasions, they took their romance the full way at hotels in London. Over the course of their affair, Saqib showered Ansreen with gifts, totaling roughly £3,000. An Apple Watch, shoes, clothes, meals and makeup were just some of the items he had purchased for her. Ansreen claimed that she never asked nor wanted the gifts, but accepted them anyway. Saqib was smitten. He confessed to friends and family that although he knew she had a husband and children, he was deeply in love with her. She, on the other hand, didn't necessarily feel the same way. I've just made the biggest mistake. I was very ashamed and embarrassed. It was clear that the lifestyle had gone to Ansreen's head. She felt young again. Remember, only months before the two began speaking, Ansreen, in her own words, lived a normal life. Saqib played a role in the excitement that she
What am I
had
carrying
described.
on me, dude?
On the 10th of December 2021, Ansreen and Saqib would meet up at a hotel in London. There isn't in-depth details about what took place during this face-to-face, other than Ansreen explaining that she had taken things too far, but appreciated the time they had spent together. Nothing happened while we were at the hotel, apart from speaking with each other. I wanted to end it, but he wanted to continue. He wasn't listening at all. Ansreen had finally ended things. In the days after Ansreen broke things off, Saqib begged her not to end it and reconsider her position. He was heartbroken. She obviously didn't want the relationship anymore, but Saqib just couldn't take that for an answer. He couldn't move on with his life like Ansreen had asked him to. Messages flooded through, hundreds of calls were made. If I was ignoring him, if my daughter was on TikTok Live, someone would make a fake account and say, "Tell your mum to call me." I was getting tired. I didn't want to talk with him anymore, and so I blocked him. I told Mehek I've had enough. I couldn't take it anymore. Then came January of 2022. Saqib had felt powerless. There was nothing he could do to get his relationship
Someone just got
with
iced.
Ansreen. No matter how much he pleaded, how much he begged, Ansreen just didn't want anything to do with him anymore. In January of 2022 then, Saqib decided to take a different approach. This approach got Ansreen's attention. Blackmail. Over the course of the first 5 weeks of 2022, Saqib Hussain came up with a blackmail scheme in where he threatened to share nude images and videos of Ansreen and expose their relationship to not only Ansreen's husband and her son, but rather social media as well. The revelation of the affair would ruin Ansreen's marriage and damage her reputation. It would also impact Mehek's relationship with her father and would cause damage to Mehek's online influence. Ansreen was all ears. "You dumb bitch.
Oh my
I'll send
God.
your son
What's
nude
in
pictures
here?
of you. I'll ruin it. I don't give a shit. When I'm mad, I'm mad. I have nothing to lose. I'll send videos to your whole family. I'll tell your husband everything. You know what I'm capable of. I'm going to send your son one nude of you first. Your son's gonna see them videos
this
now
guy, by the
of
way.
us in
The
the
hell?
hotel, okay? Don't make me everything up. Don't say I didn't tell you. I'm giving you a last chance. I'll send now. Your son's going to see them videos and pics. Are you going to call, or shall I make your husband mad?" Although these threatening messages had been sent, nothing ever came of it. Saqib was just trying his hardest to somehow get Ansreen's attention. An example, Saqib would threaten Ansreen in a message, then as the conversation developed, he would beg to meet her face to face in an attempt to get back together. The blackmail scheme was no secret, well, at least to Mehek anyway. She knew exactly what was going on. Once the threatening messages came Ansreen's way, Mehek had this to say to Saqib: "You little narcissistic bastard. I know what game you're playing. You'll get the message soon. You'll see movement soon. This year, you'll be gone." She then sent this to her mother. "I'll soon get him jumped by guys, and
Whoa.
he won't know what day it is." By early
Whoa.
February of
That's a threat.
2022, Ansreen Bakari had enough of the threats and attempted to turn the tables. She wanted to be in control of the situation. She
Valid.
threatened to go to the police and tell them about the blackmail scheme, but for whatever reason, she never ended up going to the authorities. However, a solution to the problem was about to emerge. You see, Saqib demanded that Ansreen cough up the money he spent on her during the relationship, roughly £3,000, and after that, he would leave her alone. His plan was to fly out to Pakistan. At first, Ansreen was reluctant to do so. After all, Saqib could collect the money, keep the images and videos, and then continue with the blackmail. Eventually, though, she would agree. On the 8th of February 2022, 28-year-old Rekhan Karwan reached out to Saqib Hussain. He was acting on behalf of the Bakaris when the topic of money entered the conversation. Mehek and Ansreen had known Rekhan for a few years leading up to this point. He was also a content creator from Leicester who had collabed previously with the pair. It was clear that they had a well-established relationship because they
What's that
approached
noise?
him to ask him to speak
Was
with
that the video?
Saqib about the money. On the day
That was
in
my car
question,
dying.
2 phone calls were made, lasting roughly 10 minutes between Rekhan and Saqib. Although it isn't clear what the contents of the conversations were, it's been suggested that it was about the £3,000. More specifically, Sakib needing to provide proof that he had spent this £3,000. On the following day, the 9th, Sakib was told that he'd have to meet Rekan in Leicester to retrieve the money from him. Sakib's sister overheard that
God.
conversation and spoke
Somebody did
with him about it. She feared that he may be set up. Sakib had his heart set on the money though. He wanted to clear his head and use the funds to fly out to Pakistan. Taking his sister's advice, Sakib messaged Rekan and told him that the money needed to be sent to his bank over the next day or so. The money was never deposited. On the evening of the 10th, frustrated, Sakib messaged Mehek, threatening to turn up at Ansreen's home in Stoke to reveal all. Only 30 minutes after that message was sent, Mehek would tell Sakib that if he wanted the money, he would have to travel to Loughborough to collect it from her and her mother. Loughborough, for those of you who aren't aware, sits just outside of Leicester. Although Loughborough had been chosen originally, Leicester was the final meeting point. Sakib was more than happy to take the trip, but there was just one issue. He didn't drive. So he decided to ask friends to see if they could give him a lift from his home in Banbury, Oxfordshire to Leicester. One
Spending
said he
3k
couldn't
gifts on
because
someone,
he
not being
needed
able to
get
drive and
home
getting a lift
and
instead
didn't
of like a
have any
taxi is
house keys,
crazy.
so he'd be locked out. Another said he had to go to Middlesbrough the following day. Enters Mohammed Hashim Ijazuddin. Mohammed had been at home with family when he got the call to see if he could take Sakib to Leicester. Bear in mind that although Mohammed knew this trip was to collect money, he didn't know who it was from because he had no connection whatsoever to Ansreen, Mehek or Rekan. Mohammed agreed to take the trip with Sakib, and at around 11 PM, they left out to make the rough 60-mile trip to Leicester. We don't know exactly what went down during the trip, but it more than likely consisted of a few messages between Mehek and Sakib, including where the exact meeting point was, a Tesco superstore. When the boys arrived in Leicester, they drove to a Tesco in the Narborough Road area. They waited a while, but ultimately no one arrived. They had travelled to the wrong store. The correct one was across the city, in the Hamilton area. At 17 minutes past 1 in the morning on the 11th of February,
every Tesco car park looks
the boys
exactly
were
the
seen
same,
entering
dude.
the car park of the Tesco store in Hamilton, shown by the green arrow.
Oh, there he is.
The red arrow hovers over a silver Audi TT. Present in the vehicle is none other than Mehek and Ansreen Bakari, Rekan Karwan and Mohammed Patel. The blue arrow hovers over a blue Seat Leon. Present in the vehicle are Race and Amir Jamal, cousins, Natasha Akhtar, the owner of the blue Seat Leon, and Sanaf Gula Mustafa. Let's break down how all involved are connected. Everyone in the blue Seat Leon, Race, Amir, Natasha and Sanaf, are all part of a friendship group that includes Rekan and Mohammed, who sit in the Audi TT. It should be noted though that Mohammed was one of the newer members of the group. He had known Race for a while, but had only started to socialise with the others in the few months leading up to this point. The connection between the Bakaris and this friendship group, as you know, is Rekan. But it wasn't just him. Race also knew them as well. It isn't entirely clear why the boys decided to flee from the car park, although Mohammed Patel would say that he and Rekan had been hiding in a nearby stairwell. Apparently after Sakib and Mohammed spotted them, he believed they got spooked and decided to flee. Sakib and Mohammed were now being pursued by Mehek's Audi TT and Natasha's Seat Leon. However, the girls weren't driving. Instead, Rekan got behind the wheel of the Audi whilst Race drove the Seat. After fleeing from Tesco, the boys weren't too sure if they were being chased by at least the Seat. It had been quite close behind them, so they needed to double check.
It's like a GTA setup.
At some point during the pursuit, Mehek had called Saqib to tell him to stop and pull into a supermarket car park, but he refused. Once she realised he wasn't going to stop, the conversation got heated. Watch what I do to you. The call between Mehek and Saqib would end around here, Watermead Park. Again, we don't know in-depth details about their conversation, but it was clear Saqib thought his life was in danger. They're trying to block me in. They're trying to block me in. There's guys following me. They've got balaclavas on. They're trying to kill me. I'm going to die.
My God.
I've gone past Ratcliffe College right now, and they're trying to kill me. They're trying to kill me. They're crashing into my car. They're hitting the car. They're hitting the back of the car really fast. They're trying to ram us off the road. Please, I'm begging you. Oh my God. Are extracts from a phone call made by Saqib to the Leicestershire police, right after he had spoken with Mehek. He called them in fear for his life. Those 3 words, oh my God, were followed by screaming and then a loud crashing noise. The pursuit lasted roughly 10 miles. Some of the vehicles had reached speeds of around 100 miles per hour. According to CCTV that hasn't been released to the public, it looked as if initially both the Audi TT and Seat Leon were attempting to box Mohammed's car in order to bring it to a standstill. This tactic would fail after every attempt. With the plot to slow them down failing, both cars opted for a different method, one that would put the lives of Mohammed and Saqib at even more risk. They decided to ram the vehicle. Rekan and Race had been on the phone to one another when they decided to switch up the tactics. Both were encouraging each other to continuously ram the car. When the cars passed this petrol station on the A46, Race rammed Mohammed for a final time. Not once, not twice, but 3 times in quick succession. During the first 2 rams, Mohammed's car had been hit from the back, but he still managed to keep control of the vehicle. However, when it was rammed for the 3rd time, it had been from the side towards the rear of the car. At 90 miles per hour, the blue Seat Leon would push Mohammed's Skoda down the A46 before it clipped the curb, which sent the car flying into the central reservation. The car would be split into 2. The engine would fly across the A46. Sadly, ladies and gentlemen, Saqib and Mohammed would be dead upon impact.
I'm surprised.
The A46 was quiet on the morning of February 11th, 2022. There were no witnesses to the crash. All people were left with when they did eventually come across the car wreck was a huge fire. To many, it had looked like a tragic road traffic accident. But as you know, something much darker had occurred. Police were called to the scene by a recovery truck driver who had been heading back home to Nottingham after delivering a car in Leicestershire. The authorities would arrive at the scene a short while after the call was made, and within minutes an investigation was underway. Given the fact that there were no witnesses, the police had to quickly spring into action and check surveillance camera footage to see if it could help paint a picture. Over the next hour, police knew this was no road traffic accident, thanks to the surveillance footage. And within 3 hours of the crash, they had made their first arrest. At 4:45 AM, Natasha Actor was picked up by police heading into Birmingham. Although Race had been driving her blue Seat Leon at the time of the crash, she got into the driver's seat by herself to head back home. She was arrested on suspicion of murder. Just under 3 hours after that, at 7:40 AM, police would rush to the Bakari residence in Stoke-on-Trent after tracking the Audi TT.
Where were you? Where was that?
So we
Kinda crazy.
stayed here, and then we went straight to Nottingham.
Right. Okay. In the Audi.
Yes.
Right.
Both Ansreen and Mehek were arrested on suspicion of murder. A few days after the incident, the police attended Amir Jamal's address as they were searching for information about Race and Rekan's whereabouts. When police turned up at his address on Catherine Street in Leicester, Amir wasn't present. He had been in Leeds spending time with his daughter. Amir's father called him to let him know that the police had been round and that he needed to get back to Leicester. When he got back to Leicester, he would go to a local police station to speak voluntarily with them. They had asked him questions about Rekan and Race's whereabouts, and when he had last been with them, he would lie to police. I didn't initially intend to lie to police, but when they started to ask me questions, I panicked. I was just thinking about my little girl and getting back to her. I wasn't thinking, I just panicked. After the initial questioning, Amir Jamal was released. After Amir's release, Rakan and Race handed themselves into police. It was clear that they must have been given the heads up by either Amir himself or someone within the family. The pair were arrested on suspicion of murder. 3 weeks on from the crash, and police would arrest Mohammed Patel on suspicion of murder at his home address. Then, 9 days after that, Sanaf and Amir would be arrested on suspicion of murder. Some of those arrested would give no-comment interviews to police. Some would lie, such as Mehek Bakari.
There's a car that's coming on the right-hand side, a Seattle Leon, don't know the model or anything, but it was blue.
I can already tell she's the most
straight down,
annoying
no
person
speed,
on the
nothing,
planet.
normal on the right-hand side. We were always on the
Despite,
left-hand side.
Yeah, going
This
hit
right-hand
Hitman
side
style
car's come now,
assassination
the
attempts on
the
some
blue one has come straight next
admittedly
to me. And come
creepy
right in
fella.
front of me, not very close. I've always said to myself, I'm a very
Everyone's
good
an
driver
arsehole in
when
this
it comes to
video,
driving
dude.
for 5 years, 45 years. And I've said
That's
to
all I can say
myself,
about
always
that.
keep a 2 to 3 second rule gap, always, when I've said to myself. Always done that. So this car's come not close. I've always braked. So I was doing 60, it was 70, I think it was 70 on the dual carriage or 60. I was doing 50 straight away. Went back, went to 50 to 60, went back. This car didn't do anything to me. I don't know who, it's the normal car going on the right to the left. The silver car, I don't know which brand it was, model. It's come zooming down. I've kept this second to 3 second rule gap, and the blue Leon's in front, and I'm at the back. This silver car's come and cut into the middle, so we're basically all 3 cars very close. I braked, and I said to my mum, what is this car trying to do? And my mum said, May, just keep your distance, everything's going to be okay, it's okay. Just a reckless, people just reckless because they know it's all the way down. If there's any cameras, there's going to be cameras, they must know there's no cameras. So they've gone all the way down, they've cut into my car. I've kept my distance, I braked. I think got to at least 40 because there was no cars behind me. Going to 40, this car was not threatening me, but agitating the blue car. So the blue car went onto the right lane, which is the overtaking lane, and the silver car went onto the right lane with the same car as the blue. So then the blue car went onto the left, and the silver car kept to the left, and it was just harassing. Like the blue car was trying to let you go, like go, you can go now because I'm letting you. But this silver car was not letting the blue car go. So I was
Someone
thinking,
spent
okay, well, they're not
£3,000 on this person.
agitating me. They're not trying to put me off my driving. I'm going on my left lane. I'm further away from these cars. So, like I said, they were doing their own thing. I've gone past on the right lane now. The blue car's in front always. The silver car was behind. I've gone past, and I've gone further away from this car on the left side. And then the blue car has caught up with me on the right side. I don't know who they are. I didn't even see the silver car as well. And the silver car, all I hear is like a you can hear like a bang, but not a big bang. It was like you hit behind me basically. The silver car's hit the blue car at the back like a touch, but you can tell the blue car has gone a bit faster. So I looked at my mum and I goes, Mum, what is going on? What is wrong with? Are they? I don't know if they're drunk. What are they trying to do to this blue car in general? So Mum goes, May, like I said, leave it. You're not involved. You don't know what's going on. You just go straight on and leave it. I goes, okay, that's fine. This blue car's gone straight now, and this silver car's gone behind. And as soon as I said, Mum, as soon as we see a slip road, we're gonna go to a slip road. We've gone forward, and the silver car's hit the back of the blue car. The blue car, see it, like Leon's gone, completely gone. As soon as I've turned around, this silver car's gone. Out from the, I didn't see. All I've seen is they've hit, and all I see is right, like a swerve. The silver car swerved to not my side, to the other side of the dual carriageway where the metal bits are basically. And I didn't see the car after that. I didn't hear a bang. Apparently there was mentioned there was a tree. I didn't see no tree. I didn't see anything.
I didn't see no
I've
tree.
gone straight on. I looked at my mom and I said, Mom, what? I was just in shock.
Forgot the fucking wrench.
She goes, May, there's a slip road.
And some would tell the truth, such as Mohammed Patel.
Oh, nuts.
One of the occupants of the Skoda Fabia. I don't know exactly who,
Fuck.
but
in the heck.
and sack it, from what I understand.
Like,
Well, that's annoying.
Yep.
From there, I didn't really follow what the situation was. I was under the influence of cannabis at the time. At that time, there's a really heated conversation, and then she says, "Watch what I do to you.
Like what, sorry?
Watch what I do to you."
Next to that.
Yeah. Something from the phone. I'm in a panic at the moment. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to
Great.
get out of this
Let's find a wrench.
From there,
I'm going to want to see my stats for this one.
the race is trying to overtake him. So come into like the third lane and trying to overtake him. And trying to stop him in his track.
I would take the Skoda.
Overtake the Skoda and stop him.
Yep.
And we're inside the Audi TT. We're still following. Sometimes still following. Then Rekan takes the lead and manages to overtake Skoda Fab.
Okay.
And trying to do like a tactical maneuver and trying to stop them. He's not able to fully control the car and
Probably won't be a wrench in there anyway.
the Seat now. And then from there, because Mahek had said don't damage this car, he had held it back. Yeah, so he's held back now, and we're at the back of this pursuit now.
So did you say he hit? He can't control the car, did he? No crash though at that point?
No,
No. But he
he was swerving in and out.
swerving
Yeah,
and she tells him,
yeah, and then hits the back of, I think, the front of the Leon.
oh, so it hits.
And
What?
hits the front of the Leon.
Okay.
From the, we've tried to come, gone onto the left-hand side lane,
Yep.
and
Ooh.
now the Skoda Fabia is trying to hit us, which has hit the driver's side, the rear, and we've almost lost control. But Rekan has managed to control the car and bring it, to a stable speed, and we're okay. And now, from what I believe, Seat Leon.
Yep.
The Seat Leon is now chasing
Oh my God.
the guy
Oh my
full on and going past.
Those houses would be good to live in.
On the A46.
It's pretty dead for a city as well.
So we've gone past the speed camera, and he's not trying to ram him. This is all happened
Oh shit.
after the shell and the camera. There was a camera on the A46
Yeah, no.
and the shell.
Yeah, no.
Once we've gone past the shell, this is all started. And he's driving very erratic.
Yep.
Reese is driving very erratic. And now there is a phone call being made from my phone. Number ending 68. Made to Mr. Jamal's phone.
Yep.
Yoink.
From there, the phone call being made because Rekan had specifically told me to make the phone call to him, and we're not able to stop the car by any chance. We're not able to stop him in the side of the TT. So now Race has taken the lead. He's got him, Rekan on the phone. I've got Rekan on the phone. On my phone,
Ooh, here we go. Alright.
my phone is making a phone call to Reese. Reese is saying I'm gonna try and stop the guy. I might have to ram him.
So when you made this call, you spoke to, even though it's driving, you spoke to Reese. It's Reese you spoke to.
I didn't speak to him directly. Rick Hannon spoke to him.
on his phone.
Right, so your Recon's got your phone.
Yeah. Well, he's not got my phone. I'm holding the phone towards him.
Right,
Hello, Gwenny.
Sorry, yeah.
We're watching some 8 Show.
Okay, yeah.
It got a bit crazy out of nowhere. Now we're in the interrogation phase. You kind of missed a lot of context, I'm not going to lie. Sorry, I was just in a big old stretch.
Sorry.
It's getting good though, it's getting juicy, I'm not going to lie. It's getting very juicy.
You might have to ram him and Recon's told him to.
Yeah, it's a bit of an oh goodness moment. Don't worry, it's nothing crazy. Nothing crazy, mate. Don't worry about it.
Charged with the murders of Sakiba Mohammed. Even though the likes of Mohammed Patel came forward to police to tell them exactly what had happened, in their eyes he was still present, meaning he played a role in the murders. Over the course of the police investigation, it revealed that after the car had collided with the tree, neither the Audi nor the Seat stopped and called
How's
the
school going, Gwen?
police. They instead
Nothing. Yeah, there is
turned
nothing
their
like a
devices
good court
off,
case.
drove
Trust me.
further up the road to Nottingham Raceway karting, got out of the car to check what
Classic.
damage had been caused,
It's the
and
Ed
then
Cook
came
special.
back down the A46 towards Leicester. They drove by the car wreck without a care in the world. Once arriving in Leicester, both cars would travel to Sutton Place. That sits within the Rushymede area of Leicester. They would all leave the vehicles, walk out of Sutton Place onto Sutton Avenue, then onto Gypsy Lane, before making a right and turning onto Catherine Street.
It's just a little something to keep the vibesies going when there's nothing happening in game. Which has been a surprising amount of this journey, because my car broke and I've been running. Oh, look, cars. Very enthralling. Ha! I am the video that plays. Sounds good.
Mohammed Patel had broke off from the group at this point in the CCTV footage. He had headed back home to the Northfields area of Leicester. After this CCTV clip, Amir and Rekan walked back down Gypsy Lane to Sutton Place, and it was here Amir Jamal split off from him, heading towards his home on Catherine Street. He had taken a shortcut through an alleyway. According to testimony from some of those involved, they had parked the cars up in order to lay low from the area. In October of 2022, all 8 went on trial of Sakib Hussain and Hashim. However, the trial collapsed midway through due to a jury irregularity. We'll never know what that was due to reporting.
Yeah, the shotgun's really loud, I don't know why.
We do know it had nothing to do
There's no setting for it, so I can't turn it down either. It deafens me. I was playing the game through speakers yesterday when I heard the shotgun and realised it's way too loud. And then I went to headphones very quickly.
All 8 would take the stand during the trial. Some would give testimony that they were in their own world
try not
after
to use it
smoking
too often.
cannabis and didn't even pay attention to what was unfolding. Some said they believed that they were going for a late night drive when out of nowhere they found themselves in the middle of a chase. But it didn't matter what reason they gave, because the jury found all but one of them guilty for either the murder or manslaughter of the boys. It's to no surprise that Mohammed Patel was the only one found
Crazy ass
guilty.
police chase.
After all,
Not
he
police
came
chase.
clean to police about
Just
what
normal
specifically
chase.
had happened
No
and
police.
had told them about everyone's role in the incident. It wasn't just that though. You see, although Mohammed had been present, he had been at home
Finally
prior
got
to the
wet.
meetup. Everyone else within the friendship group had been together earlier on that night, smoking at a shisha lounge. It's clear then that Rekan and Race had got the heads up about what was about to go down, and in the jury's eyes, everyone apart from Mohammed must have had some sort of knowledge that something serious was about to take place.
Murder. There's a lot of twists to that story. Her policies look good too. That's not a very appropriate thing to say. That guy's got a fucking swimming pool, dude. And company, apparently. Crazy.
Members of
mind.
the public who attended would have thought that was just a car crash, a tragic accident.
Cover your ears.
To those leading up to the car with tree. Sakib had made a very chilling 909.
Yeah. Oh, double, yeah.
Commenced, and he reported to the operator that they were being followed. Two vehicles. The
Reloading.
occupants were wearing balaclavas. They were blocking the car, trying to ram his car, and it progressed along the other when he was providing the operators some key location data, some key signposts until
Oh, I didn't bring any ammo.
the end when he,
I forgot my
reported
wrench. I
the
forgot
street
the
closed.
ammo.
Hear,
It's not going well.
a sound and then screams and silence as the car hits a tree. So we
Okay.
quite early on were aware from the police perspective that this wasn't just an ordinary traffic collision at the stages. And then clearly as the investigation progressed and people were being arrested and interviewed, it was clear then we had some considerable involvement with social media and context around who was contacting who and how they were contacting each other, which
Here we
we'll
go.
come on to in a little bit. But in essence, the contact between them in the early stages was scant. It was reliant upon traditional phone calls and text messages, and that wasn't clearly presenting the whole picture at the time. So, and Sakib's phone clearly was destroyed in the accident or the crash, so we couldn't get anything from his phone.
I'm being rude
So we
today,
were
I'm
left with a
sorry.
big gap in terms of how
Toads
do
and
we
ropes.
piece everybody together, knowing what we knew from the families, knowing what we had an inclination about, but there was nothing to support the accounts. And it wasn't
I'm just
until a lot
enthralled by
later,
the dude
as
talking.
the
I
first
can't
trial,
even
that we
concentrate. This is great.
were able to
ADHD
obtain
Andy.
the phone data from Sakib's destroyed phone and the pictures and the images with the help of his family that showed the contents, the phone calls, the social media, but more importantly, the photographs of him and Sreen Bakari that really brought the whole investigation together and showed that there was a sexual relationship or had been going on between the two of them, something which they denied right up until the point that we were able to show the evidence to the defendants.
Where are you?
Before the first trial,
Oh,
we had
went straight
a
past.
considerable number of messages from Sakib to answering Mahek.
Let it be. Unless she's a
talking
policewoman
about,
officer. I think she might be a
wanting to
police
meet
officer
up,
woman.
talking about the money, talking about the pictures,
Gimme.
you know, telling her,
She's not.
her husband and her family
She just
about
wears
these
blue.
recent images or the videos that they've got, wanting money from them. And also it showed that some of the messages that would have been on Answerin's phone have been deleted because we screenshot some of the messages from her mum's phone. So we could see the screenshots on the Hex phone, but we couldn't see the relevant messages on Answerin's phone. So we knew that they'd been deleted there as well. Well, I think the point you make is it's been an extremely long investigation. Commenced on the 11th of February, so we've been almost 17, 18 months down the line. We've gone through one trial almost to the conclusion.
Driver
So
like a
massive amount of work
soul.
went into this from the investigation team, from all parts of the investigation team, through bringing this through a daily basis to the court, and that's not just the police, it's the Crown Prosecution Service and the prosecution council.
Alright.
So there has
There's
been
a
a
wrench
massive
around
amount
here.
of work, and will be satisfied at the end of it. We presented a really good case, a really strong case. The families, for them, it's not the end of the road, but it's at least some closure for them from the court perspective. She presented a number of reasons why she hadn't done so. It was the fear of how she would be seen within her family and community by having an affair with Sakib, how that might pan out, how that might affect the Hex.
A snow shovel? It is. Amazing. A scythe?
Oh. So she used a couple of
Oh, hey,
reasons
dudes.
as to why she had to do it, which I think it's fair to say if she hadn't done, I think having been with Sakib's father on many occasions, I think if she had a report to the police ahead of
Almost got me.
I think she would have been in the situation we were on the 11th of February. And I think both
Flush. We're not here to listen to the news. The news is the snooze. Give us the next video. The next video is this.
In sheep's clothing.
Apparently.
And was there for one objective.
That looks a bit crazy. Let's do it anyway. Nah, it seems a bit crazy. Ah, fuck it. What's the worst that could happen? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Oh, we're doing it. I don't know. Yeah, we're doing it.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
We're not doing it.
Emmanuel Church, there's plenty people shot down here, please.
It's too much. It's too much. We're not doing it. I'm not doing it. Hold on. We can switch up the content. It's taking a dark turn. Also, what are you messaging me? What are you saying?
Myself in the mirror. I was like,
Who's
I
gone?
feel like I'm Shelley Duvall today.
She feels like she's Shelley Duvall today, guys.
I don't know what she does in the bathroom.
All right, let's switch up the content. I'm vibing it, but it's a bit too crazy. At first it was quite juvenile, but it's turned very quickly into like, this man exploded a man, and that's not what we're here for. We're not here for man exploding. Right. Right. Alright. Nah, I specifically held it close to the mic. If you message me during a stream, it's just what's gonna happen, mate. It's just what's gonna happen. What should we learn about today? What are we learning about today, boys? Let's learn about... Oh, guns on it. Alright. A request. Listening. Waiting. Hoping. Deep sea creatures. Deep sea creatures and exploration. I'm sure I can whip something up. Deep sea creatures and exploration. Let's have a look. Should we just look it up? Let's go with... Let's see what we've got going on here. I don't want any of that annoying Oh! Wendigoon's done a video on them. On terrifying ocean mysteries. I love Wendigoon. We can watch a Wendigoon video. It looks more like... mysteries rather than creatures. Let's see what else we got going on here. Which cryptids are real? The Congo jungle? What's that got to do with the ocean? Watch Mojo, hell yeah! Deep sea divers are seeing things that can't explain. Alright, you know what? The top ones, they look a bit more... Like the top results are a bit more... Here's a video on the ocean. Number 1, the ocean is blue sometimes. It's like... the other one doesn't really look like it's about creatures. I'm sure creatures come up at some point. Let's just do it.
Docks
And then there's madness at sea? Nah. The psychedelic iceberg? Hell yeah, dude. It's definitely being influenced by my my watch history. Most certainly. The unexplainable disappearances of missing 411. Crazy. SCP, the hike that killed 5 schoolboys. The mass extinction debates. That sounds sick. It's 2 hours long. Alright, I'm getting ADHD-ified already. Let's just start the video.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the
This one's
channel
Wendigoon
and
News.
happy Halloween.
It's
And
an
I'll
old
be
one as
honest,
well.
for Halloween I was kind of struggling to
Can
come
we,
up with what concept I
there
wanted
she
to
is.
do a video on. Because you know, I could talk
Dude.
about like scary movies or demons
Shut
or whatever,
up,
but
yeah?
that's just like me
Alright.
any other day of the year. So I decided for Halloween, why not
Let's get
talk
him.
about the one thing that
Sorry, bud.
truly, deeply terrifies me, and that is the ocean.
The
See, I
ocean.
suffer from immense thalassophobia, and it's not like a specific fear of sharks or water or swimming or anything like that. It is the infinite depths of the ocean itself. There have been countless stories throughout history of the largest grave on Earth taking in people and refusing to give them back. For humans, the majority of our fear revolves around the idea of the fear of the unknown, and the ocean itself has proved to be the one
My hand's nice and
unknowable
fixed.
consequence of this world.
I missed the
There is
ladder,
such a horrific
but that's
nature
fine.
to the fact that it just exists that it's almost mesmerizing. And to prove that
Oh.
today, I'm going to tell a few stories of ocean mysteries that not only terrify me, but I think get across the point of why the ocean itself is so mysterious.
The
At
ocean
least that's
doesn't
what
scare
I'm
me,
going to
so
start
this is going to
doing.
be
This may
more
get into a
interesting
rant
than
of me
scary,
just
I would
talking
imagine.
about krakens and ocean monsters, but we'll see how it goes. And through these stories of ghost ships, sea monsters, and
Sea
the other
monsters, I've just
unexplainable,
ran through
I
a
hope
video
that
here.
maybe today we can take a look at what is, in my opinion, the scariest thing on Earth. But before we break down all of my deepest, darkest fears, let's talk about something even more horrifying: poor hygiene. And trust me,
fuck it, we'll let
dudes,
the
I
ad
know
play.
that as a dude, we like to be
Severe
disgusting
scratch.
for some reason. And even though it's Halloween,
How do I
I
fix
have come
that?
again to tell you about a product that will make your life way less terrifying.
Glenn's
and
gonna
that
have to
is
shave
today's
her balls.
sponsor, Manscaped. I've talked about it before on this channel, and I'm
Bobbing
going
and
to do it
weaving.
again because, as always, it is a fantastic product. It takes what would otherwise be this expansive, complicated route of what do I need and what don't I need, and compiles it all into one package for you. And today I've come
like a
to tell
bloody
you
forest.
about their newest kit that you can get a hold of, the Performance Package 4.0. To start off, the Performance Package comes with the brand new Lawnmower 4.0, which is not only a sleek and very well working electric razor, but it also works
People
as a
really
handy
spend
dandy
this much money to
flashlight.
shave
It
their
also
balls?
includes the Weed Whacker
Because
nose
I
and
definitely
ear
don't spend
trimmer,
this much money to
because
shave
if
my
there's
balls
one
either.
thing I think we can all agree on, it's that nose and ear hair are gross. Here comes the part where I squirt this into my hand and make a mess everywhere. There is a lot in my hand because I keep messing up this take, but the Crop Moisturizer is a very long-lasting, quick-absorbing moisturizer that keeps you refreshed and energetic all day. As well as the cooling aloe vera and anti-inflammatory toner spray, you can just give yourself a couple fritz and you are good to go for the day. And with Manscaped's Peak Hygiene Plan, you will be able to get replenishing amounts of all of this straight to
Drop
your
2
door,
hammers now, right?
hassle-free. And for a limited time, if you get the Performance Package 4.0, you will be able to also get this free Manscaped travel bag,
Ooh,
which is actually a
wants to take
solid
this home.
material and not your standard like great value stuff. As well as the Manscaped anti-chafing boxer briefs, which once again is high quality and not painful. So I've brought all this to you to say that if you go to the link in the description and use discount code Wendigoon at checkout, you will be
maybe
able
just
to
so
get
heavy.
everything I
I don't really need
mentioned
a show
for
snuggle, do we?
20% off and with free shipping. That is right. Once again, link in the description, discount code Wendigoon. You will be able to get
yeah.
the Performance Package 4.0,
Even got a
the 2
freezer.
free gifts, all for 20%
Bacardi
off
Breezer.
and free international shipping. Thank you all so much for watching this ad. Thank you so much to Manscaped for sponsoring the video. It really does mean the most. I hope that you enjoyed. Check them out. And we are back to the video. We are going to go ahead and get into it, but as always,
I didn't know the mod added an
thank
animation.
you for watching.
That's sick.
To start out, if
Oh
I'm
my
making a
God.
video about ocean mysteries, then I'd be amiss if I didn't talk about the most famous ghost ship of all of history, the Mary Celeste. Well, you may be asking, what is a ghost ship? And we're going to find out right now. The Mary Celeste was a ship originally built in the 1860s.
In the
and
freezer?
this wasn't a small ship either. It was 103 feet long and 25 feet wide. The ship was originally called the Amazon before it was in a wreck and salvaged and reconverted into the Mary Celeste. So if you believe in bad karma and juju, this ship was already off to a bad start. The next year, the ship was bought by a man named Winchester, who hired a captain by the name of Benjamin Spooner Briggs, and no, that was his real name. Captain Briggs was to take the ship on its maiden voyage from New York City to Genoa, Italy. Briggs himself was a seasoned sailor, as you can imagine with a name like that, and handpicked a crew of not only his close friends, but other trained professionals. After stopping in New York, the ship loaded up on 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol, or in other words, pretty much ethanol. Like, it's still alcohol, but you wouldn't use it to drink. Captain Briggs also brought his wife and young daughter along, which was a thing that I guess people did back then. So between him, his family, and the crew, there was a total of 10 people aboard the Mary Celeste. And on November 5th, they set sail across the Atlantic to Italy. That was the last time that any of the crew was ever seen again. 8 days after the Mary Celeste set sail, the Di Grazia, which had left from another nearby port, was basically on their track and going to a similar location. It was then on December 4th that the Di Grazia spotted a ship simply floating in the middle of the ocean. This is a weird thing to happen, so the captain of the Di Grazia tried to make contact with the floating ship. Upon coming up to this ship, the captain noticed two really alarming things. For one, the sails seemed to be in a sort of in-between state, as in some of them were furled out and some of them were folded up, kind of implying that it was at a transition period, as well as the much more alarming fact that there was nobody on board, which is probably a bad thing. This ship that had been found completely abandoned was the Mary Celeste. It was found in this state 600 miles off the coast of Gibraltar, which, while closer to Europe than the original starting point for sure, was still basically the middle of open ocean. The captain of the Di Grazia sent two of his men to go search the Mary Celeste, to which this is the site that they came across. Upon getting on deck, they noticed that several aspects of the ship were in a sort of ruffled condition. To start off, several of the ropes were tied to the sides of the ship, and the ropes themselves dangling over in the water, implying that someone had untied something and quickly tossed the rope into the water behind them. Two of the covers to the lower parts of the ship were wide open. This is traditionally a bad thing to do, especially in long periods, because if there's any rain or dew, it will get down to the lower parts of the ship, as well as a large device that holds the compass and other measurement devices was cracked on its glass and pushed over out of its place, which normally wouldn't be a big deal, but these are massive pieces of metal, and it's not like someone would just pick up a 300-pound block and set it over for no reason. There was also something known as a sounding rod laying on the deck. A sounding rod is basically a makeshift device that's used to determine
sounding rods where you put up a dick hole.
Ship. Or in other words, if you feel that there's water within your ship, you can use a sounding rod to see how bad the situation is, and it was just lying there on the floor of the deck. We'll come back to that one later. Perhaps most notably, one of the lifeboats was missing. Not only that, but the rope that was in the place of where the lifeboat would have been located was not untied, but cut. See, when you're out in the middle of the ocean, especially as a sailor, you've only got a limited amount of rope, so you wouldn't cut it unless you were in a really big hurry. Upon further investigation in the ship, within the cabin they found the captain's log. Captain Briggs logged everything from the hours, so there was a very intense and descriptive description of everything that happened within the boat up until 8 a.m. on November 25th. Because of this, we can safely assume that whatever happened to the Mary Celeste happened between 8 and 9 a.m. on November 25th. That would mean that this event occurred 9 days before its discovery. And given the coordinates that the captain logged at 8 a.m. on November 25th, that would also place it 400 miles away from wherever this thing happened. And one of the strangest things of this entire mystery is absolutely everything was in its place. Everyone's personal supplies, all of the food rations, and the alcohol barrels were all in their respectable locations as if nothing had happened. The only thing that could not be found was the captain's personal navigation equipment. In the very bottom hold of the ship, there was about 3.5 feet of water. Now you may be thinking that that sounds like a really bad thing and the ship is sinking. That's actually a pretty normal amount. See, back when boats were made of, you know, like wood, they weren't exactly sealed up all the time and it wasn't uncommon for water to seep in. Also, the deck itself wasn't exactly airtight either. So if there was something like rain, all of that rain would go down into the bottom of the boat. There were pumps in place in order to get water out of the bottom whenever that happened, and the 3.5 feet indicate that the water hadn't been pumped for some time. That's the purpose of the sounding rod I met earlier, because you could eyeball the water in the bottom of the boat, and it's a very thin line between, we need to pump it in, everyone needs to leave right now. The DeGradia, which is the ship that found the Mary Celeste, decided to bring it into port in order to get the salvage earnings. See, the way it used to work is if you found salvage or some sunken treasure or something along that line, and you were to bring it into port and sell it back to either a state government or a private ownership or whatever, whoever bought the supplies would pay you a handsome finder's fee for recovering the wreckage. So the captain of the DeGradia, seeing a literal empty floating ship full of potential money, decided to bring it into port. However, because he was trying to get money for it, there was a sort of trial held to determine if the ship was gained by moral means, basically confirming that the captain wasn't trying to commit some elaborate form of insurance fraud. Overseeing this trial was a man by the name of Attorney General Flood, and I have to mention this because it's too funny not to. In research for this, there was one historian who said, and I quote, "He was a man whose arrogance and pomposity were inversely proportional to his IQ." Pomposity. Wow. That is a fantastic word. I'm keeping it. During the course of this trial, they went through a whole slew of different theories of what happened to the crew of the ship. See, the most crucial piece of evidence, and really the only piece of evidence that anyone has, is the fact that one of the lifeboat tethers was cut,
fries, napkins,
that with
and a
whatever
burger?
happened, someone had an opportunity to try to get away. Not only that, but it had to be a pretty desperate situation if they cut the ropes in order to get off in what's pretty much the middle of the ocean. One of the initial theories that got tossed around was the idea of a giant storm that came through and wrecked the ship to a point that they thought it was sinking and everyone left. And remember, there were more lifeboats, so the idea that everyone hopped on one and hurriedly cut it implied that they thought something was happening right away, or the winds of the storm were threatening to capsize the boat. However, an investigator who was sent to look at the ship found several open vials of both ink and oil setting up on tables. Which, as you could imagine, if it was a massive storm that was threatening to sink the boat and the waves were tossing it around, those vials wouldn't just be sitting there upright, not having been spilled. And also, all of the alcohol barrels and personal belongings would be all over the place if that was the case. But like I said, everything was in perfect order. That Attorney General Flood that I mentioned earlier really had some dumb ideas about this. He was convinced that there was foul play involved in some way just for eventually this new captain to bring the boat in for insurance fraud, or technically salvage fraud, but pretty much same thing. But this captain is a seasoned captain who's been working for years and makes good money. And Captain Briggs was also a seasoned captain who was making good money doing what he's doing. So it doesn't make sense for them to ruin their whole careers and livelihoods just to make a quick buck. That didn't stop the Attorney General from getting some weird evidence. Like, for example, there was a sheathed sword found underneath Captain Briggs's bed. While which, inspecting the sword, there was something that he said could have been blood. As well as on the deck of the ship, there was other stuff that he said could have been blood. And if it sounds like I'm being vague with those descriptions, that's because he was also being vague with those descriptions. His theory was that the crew members got really drunk, killed the captain and his family, and then took the one lifeboat and just paddled out to sea. Now, this doesn't make sense for a lot of reasons. For one of his points of evidence was that whenever those two men I mentioned earlier, the first ones who got on board the Mary Celeste, whenever those two guys went down beneath deck, they said they could smell alcohol, because if you'll remember, the ship was shipping alcohol. However, this Attorney General took that to mean that the guys were drunk, and I guess totally just ignored the over 1,000 barrels of ethanol that were stored in the ship, even though there are absolutely no signs of a struggle or a murder or anything of the like. This Attorney General was so adamant about this theory that whenever the owner of the ship, Winchester, came over to Europe in order to, get his ship back, the Attorney General immediately began accusing him of
the
how
monster
he
on the
would
door.
be so evil
Hey,
as
bud.
to allow such a crew of rapscallions to kill a good captain and his family. To which I imagine Winchester was like, what? And the two got into several heated arguments in court over this before it was eventually
Yo,
decided that
let's
no one
watch
had
Wendigoon
any idea what happened to the
being a
ship.
baboon.
Also, remember the
Like a
whole
buffoon?
blood on the sword thing and
King
blood on
baboon.
the deck thing? Someone analyzed that and it wasn't blood,
Hey,
it was
Howard.
like rust and dirt. And by the time the trial was over, the Attorney General paid the captain of the De Gratia like a third of what it should have been because the Attorney General was still poopy that, they didn't stab each other and it was like a bloody fight or whatever. But that doesn't answer the question of what happened to the crew of the Mary Celeste. Well, there were several people who still believed the insurance scam story, or the idea that Briggs had put this whole thing together in order to get money off the ship, but again, it was way less than he was making as a captain anyway. And also, that still doesn't change
Rain
the
is
idea
lame.
that why would he take not only his crew but his wife and young daughter out to open ocean in order to make a few bucks. Another popular theory at the time was pirates, because pirates were in fact a problem in the 1800s. However, as I mentioned earlier, there was no signs of a struggle or anything likewise, and also if it was pirates, it would be weird for pirates to kidnap people, not take anything on the ship, including one of the 1,000 barrels of alcohol, and then never hold any of that crew they kidnapped for ransom. Because, pirates are in it for the money and the gold and all that stuff. So for them to just kidnap people and then seemingly not do anything with them doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, that doesn't explain the lifeboat thing.
Still no
People
wrench.
are still so questioning over this whole story that there was one theory that a historian did in the 20s where he said that perhaps because Captain Briggs was religious, he decided to become a fanatic and murdered everyone, threw them overboard before committing suicide and somehow not leaving any trace of this. I should also mention that historian apologized to the family after he did it because, yeah, that may be a little... And that's coming from the guy who's about to say the Kraken did it. Two of the more popular theories was that it was either a water spout or a sea quake. In other words, like a small
Sea looks
tornado
nice.
on the ocean or an earthquake, because that may cause enough turbulence and enough water being thrown around that the ship may begin to sink. However, if it was something like a water spout that was big enough that it threatened to sink the ship, there would have been, for one, a lot more water in the bottom of the ship, and also everything wouldn't have been as neatly packed as it was. And the same thing can be
Alright,
said
we need to
about
wait-
the
we need to wait
seaquake.
to
If
get
it
rid
was
of
an
all these
earthquake
zombies,
that
there's
this
so many,
seasoned
oh my
captain
God.
and his entire seasoned crew thought was at risk of drowning them all, then why was everything in such a perfect condition? Also, the whole lifeboat thing doesn't make sense for either of those. Like, sure, that may make sense for why they were in such a hurry and everyone piled into one and cut the ropes, but if you're in a tornado, and like as a seasoned captain, you're not going to be like, quick, everyone get onto the much smaller boat in the middle of the ocean. Don't get your stuff, there's no time. One theory that I think holds more weight than most of them is that of the explosion. See, denatured alcohol or ethanol has a problem with producing vapors that have a tendency to
Sprinter.
blow up. And in the captain's log that I mentioned earlier, he had mentioned throughout the trip that they just heard random explosions coming from beneath the deck, because I guess that's just a thing that happens. So perhaps one day there was a rather large explosion, and that may explain why both of the lower deck doors were open whenever the two men came on board, implying that they were trying to air out the bottom cargo hold. And in 2005, the Channel 5 broadcasting station actually recreated this theory, and it turns out that even if there's a very large vapor
So many little
explosion and a
medical
very
places
large
there.
fireball, it wouldn't destroy any of the interior. That was the issue everyone had with the explosion theory, because whenever they walked into the bottom deck, everything was fine, and you could probably tell if it, blew up. But these vapor explosions are just a quick fireball, and there's no lasting damage. However, as I mentioned, the captain had logged in his book that this had been happening over the course of the entire journey. And again, none of these guys were rookies. So I can't imagine a scenario in which a slightly bigger one of these fireballs go off and they're all like, we should paddle into open ocean just to be safe. So that still leads into the mystery of what
A
happened
wrench
to Mary
would likely
Celeste.
be there,
And
sure.
I think I've been respectful and reverent enough of the dead that I can now say it was the Kraken. The Kraken definitely did it. I didn't mention this detail earlier because it was too dumb at the time, but one of the notes that the Attorney General said in his entire case, is at the front of the ship there were several scratch marks. These weren't like enough to puncture into the boat or anything, but they were enough to be noticeable. The Attorney General's theory was that after the crew got drunk and murdered the entire family, they swam around to the front of the ship and cut it in order to make people think that it ran aground in the middle of the ocean. However, that's lame. Wouldn't it be a lot cooler if a kraken swam up there and it was latched onto the front, and that's why the scratch marks are there? And then while everyone's on deck, it just starts grabbing people with these giant tentacles, and then a couple people try to get away by hopping on a lifeboat and cutting it real quick before they too get sucked underwater, or float out to sea and die of the elements, whichever's worse. And you know the best part about that theory is, you can't tell me I'm wrong, because cameras didn't exist yet, and neither did I. So we're moving on. I think one of the reasons that the Mary Celeste is such a well-known story, and so infamous too among people like me who are absolutely terrified of the ocean, is because it kind of embodies a lot of the things that make me afraid of it in the first place. It is absolutely unexplainable, and your imagination is pretty much the deciding factor in whatever could have happened to these people. Because just like with the ocean itself, if we're taking a scenario that is so beyond our minds of anything that we can know or understand, then our deepest fears might as well be the truth. And if you're thinking, well, that was in the 1800s and people just used to die back then, which, to be fair, people did just up and die for no reason back then allow me to turn your attention to the Cause 2. I'm going to call it Cause, whatever. Now, the Cause 2 was admittedly shorter than the Mary Celeste, boasting a 32-foot span. However, it was still a yacht-class vessel and definitely capable of sailing in the ocean. On April 15th in 2007, a three-man crew decided to go out on a recreational expedition aboard the Cause 2. They set out from Queensland, Australia, and from everything that I've read of the family members of the people who were on the boat, it seems that they were just going to spend a few days going from different docks and sailing about at sea. That was until on April 18th, a helicopter spotted the boat and noticed that there didn't seem to be anyone on it. After some reports and investigations, eventually on April 20th, the boat was found and boarded about 88 miles off the coast of Australia. And similar to the Mary Celeste, whenever they got onto the boat, the entire crew was missing. Now, notably, the situation aboard the Cause 2 was noticeably more unnerving. There was food laid out on plates along with silverware, implying that everyone was just about to sit down to eat. The laptop was open and still on, implying that someone had just been using it. Even the engine was running. Everything pointed towards the idea of everyone simply just hiding as if the boat was being used only moments ago. Furthermore, all the life jackets were still hung up and none of them being used. The GPS was still working, along with all distress functions that the boat had, although none of them had been activated. Even more so, on the front of the boat, the small life raft as well as the anchor were still tied up and not being used, meaning that it seemed no one tried to stop the boat or make an escape. The one thing that was amiss on the boat is that one of the sails were very
lacerated
shredded, as if something had cut through them and torn them until they were useless. The police were able to use the GPS that was on the boat in order to backtrack the path that the Cause 2 took. And then on the GPS path, you can see the boat go out from port on the first day of their journey, slow down all at once, and then just start drifting until it was eventually found. As if the boat was just sailing out, and then for some reason, the engine went into neutral, and those three guys just disappeared off the face of the earth. Besides from the sail, the only one thing that, doesn't really count as a miss was the fact that the lure from the fishing pole was hooked into one of the side ropes off the side of the ship, which also paints another picture of what was happening when this all went down. They were out fishing. There was a pair of sunglasses found sitting on one of the front chairs on the boat, and there was a coffee mug on the back deck just sitting on a table. Again, the whole picture implies that everyone was about to eat, they were out fishing, they were bathing in the sun, and then just disappeared. Now, unlike the Mary Celeste, this is a modern investigation, so there had to be a modern proceeding of how this all went out, because three people can't just disappear and then the government not do anything about it. So at the final investigation, where they went into the whole story of what probably happened, the coroner's report, which it sounds weird for a coroner to give a report with no bodies, but I digress. In the coroner's report, for what he proposes might have happened, it sounds like a slapstick comedy. Like, his story was that one of the guys got his hook stuck on that rope on the side that I mentioned earlier, and when he bends down to pick it up, he just falls in the water, to which the second guy says, "Don't worry, buddy, I'll come get you," and he jumps off the boat, but he forgot to turn the engine off, so the third guy puts the engine in neutral, and then he undoes the sail, but the sail swings all the way around the boat and smacks him and throws him off the side. So his idea was, in the span of 30 seconds, all three of them were so incompetent that they managed to like three-stooge their way into the ocean. But as far as official reports go, that's all that we got. But despite that, as well as large-scale searches along the coast of Australia, no evidence of them was ever found. And what's so shocking about this in particular is you imagine that someone who's taken every precaution between the GPS and the radio equipment and all of that would not have the capability to go missing in the modern world. However, that's exactly what happened. And this is a much more recent occurrence, and the families of those who were lost are still alive, so I'm not going to make a joke that it was a Kraken, so I'm just going to move on.
What do you mean,
and you may
Matt?
be listening to all this and thinking, well, that sounds pretty creepy.
You are
I guess
also
I'll just stay
working
on
on
land
something,
where I'm
Glenn.
safe. See,
Like,
that's
you're
how
not
the ocean
actually
gets you.
listening to
And to
this,
prove
you're
that there is no
concentrating on
safety from the most
Right?
disturbing thing in the entire planet, look no further than the Flannan Isles lighthouse mystery. Off the west coast of Scotland, there is a series of small islands known as the Flannan Isles, with one of the largest being that of the Elaine-More Island. In 1899, a very large lighthouse was built on Elaine-More Island.
I now know
as a
more
way of
about
signaling
3 men who
sailors
got
were
lost on a
coming into
yacht
port.
and were
Our
never
mystery
discovered
begins on December 7th, after the
than
new
I
relief comes
would have ever
in
expected.
order
Hey,
to
look, the
stock the
bride
island with
in
its
the
new
church.
set of wikis.
Wow.
I love that word.
She's
See, there
dead.
were 4 workers who worked
Twice.
at the Elaine-More
That was a nice
Lighthouse
watch,
year-round, and they worked in 2-week shifts. In other words, there's always 3 people on the island, and every 6 weeks someone gets to take a break, and it rotates like that. So on December 7th, they make their trade. The relief comes to stay on the lighthouse, as the guy who's taking a break is able to go back to shore. So the 3 men within the lighthouse should not come into contact
there,
with anyone
blondie.
else for 2 weeks.
Smack.
However, something weird was noted on December 15th, whenever a boat that was coming into shore did not see the light from the lighthouse, which is, again,
I'm not
a bad
I'm
thing. See, lighthouses have to be
Look
on
at that
all
again.
the time when it's night, because even if it's a
He
perfectly
used
clear
a pop-up
night,
picture.
a ship coming in may not see the island.
I haven't even
and may
looked at
hit
the
it,
video,
which,
I'm not
again,
gonna lie.
bad
I've been
thing.
fully
So
in
for
the
the
game.
lighthouse to not be
I've just been
shining,
listening.
either those guys are really slacking off or something's wrong. On December 20th, which would have been the normal relief time anyway, a crew tried to go out to the island. However, there was an uncharacteristically thick fog at the time, and they weren't able to go until the 26th. As a matter of fact, on December 7th, whenever those 3 were placed on the island in the first place, there was a mention of a fog beginning to settle in the area.
Fog?
And again,
Where
at
is
the
fog?
20th, it was so bad that they couldn't even make their way to the island. Whenever the relief boat finally got to the island, they came to the east dock and for one saw that there were several boxes and supplies sitting on the dock that hadn't been brought into the lighthouse yet. Furthermore, there was no one to greet them and no signal that a ship was coming in. See, lighthouses are always supposed to be on the watch, and there's always someone looking for ships to come off the coast.
That is kind of what
So
lighthouses
if
are
a
made
ship's
for, yeah.
coming towards you, you're supposed to raise a specific kind of flag in order to indicate it.
Glenn, if you
although
want to
that
change the
hadn't
video,
happened.
just say
The
change the
relief
video.
vessel,
Holy
thinking
shit.
this is
It's
weird,
easier,
shoots
trust me.
a flare into the air and sounds the whistle, but no one comes out to greet them. So they decide to send a small search party to shore to see what they can run into, and this is the site that they find.
all he had to
fenced-in
say.
to the
I'm
front
sure me and
of the
Harold
lighthouse entrance was
can go one
closed,
day without a
as
Wendigo
well
video.
as the front door of the lighthouse itself. Furthermore, inside
I
the
actually
lighthouse
can't do
itself,
that,
every
I'm
other
afraid.
door was
That is
also closed. All of
against
the
the law.
beds were unmade, and food had been set out as if someone again was in the middle of just going about their day. Now there's also a mention here that all of the clocks were stopped, and while I really wish that was a super creepy thing, as if there's some weird time glitch happening, the way clocks worked back then is you had to wind them up, so that just means no one wound them up in a while. I know we were really close to like time ghost stories, but don't worry, I'll try to make it fun. And among the belongings of the 3 men who were staying at the lighthouse, one of their coats was still present. See, this is on the ocean in northern Scotland
It has to
in
be
December. There
You
was
can't
no way
stream
anyone
someone
was
else's
stepping
stream,
outside, much less
so I
doing
can't
work
do that,
outside without wearing
I'm
a
afraid.
coat. So the fact that one of the coats was still hung up next to the door implies that someone didn't have intention to go outside when whatever this was happened.
There's nothing
So
stopping
the
you from just
entire relief
leaving and
party
watching a
does
Jeremy
a
video,
huge
though.
search and comb over of the island. Now, if you remember earlier, I said they arrived at the East Dock. Whenever they went to the West Dock, they
If that's
did
what you
find
wanna
some
do,
weird
that's
stuff.
what you should go
The
do.
West Dock seemed to have been
Ooh, money.
completely destroyed, with iron bars ripped out of the ground and cracks in the dock itself and wood thrown everywhere, and some reports even saying a giant several
Why is this
hundred
not going
pound
in?
boulder had been rolled across the dock. Now, while searching everything within the first wiki's
Wild
logbook of the island, I still love that word, he had mentioned that the West Dock did need repairs and there were several broken things. However, from my reading, he didn't say anything to the effect of like the entire dock is destroyed. It was kind of just general repair stuff. So for whatever reason, it seems that the West Dock had gotten worse. Keep in mind the contrast between that and the East Dock that the crew arrived on, where there were just boxes sitting around everywhere. Within this log
now
that
the
I
trunk's too
mentioned a moment
destroyed to
ago,
put the case
there was a
away.
day-by-day account of everything that had
Going in the
happened
glove
on
box.
the island itself. These were general readings of barometric pressure
There's
and how
Noah.
many ships were spotted. However, it noted the intense fog that I mentioned
I hope I
earlier,
don't get killed.
as well as very turbulent weather. Now, here's the thing, right? This island, while yes, off from shore, it isn't like horribly off from shore. As a matter of fact, there was a guy I'm going to mention in a second whose job was to live on his home near the coast and report that he could see the light from the lighthouse every night. So it's close enough to shore that you can make visual contact with it. However, there were no storms reported within this time period. And again, it's right next to shore, so if there were these massive storms that were mentioned in the logbook, someone should have known about it. Remember that guy I said who his entire job was to make sure that he could see the light every night? Well, when he was questioned about it, he said that the fog was so thick that you could only see it on the night of the 12th, and every other night he couldn't even make out the island or the light or anything. And my favorite part about this entire story is the second wiki's log of what had happened. And I know that historically there's been some people who have said there's no way to validate if this is real or not, and I'll be honest, I don't care. This is my favorite part of the story. In the assistant wiki's log, which complemented the main wiki's log that I mentioned earlier, the assistant spoke of how the storms were getting worse and worse by the night. As the official log was saying that the storms were getting worse, the assistant began to say things like the storm is so bad it's causing all of the men to begin to pray, along with saying that now the men are beginning to cry and they don't know what they're going to do. The last entry of the original logbook was on December the 15th, specifically on 9 a.m. of December 15th, which if you'll remember, the night of December 15th is when the boat that was passing by said the light wasn't on. And also, if the storms were this dramatic, I imagine the boats passing by the island would also have mentioned them. So we can assume that whatever happened to this crew happened within 9 a.m. on December 15th to whenever that ship passed on the same day as well. To which the only entry for December 15th in the second hands log is storm ended, sea calm, God is over all. And there was never another entry, and the crew of the Elaine Lighthouse were never seen again. Alright, so now that I've got all the pieces there, I can put my evil puzzle together. I also want to mention I'm not the only one to make it a weird thing. There are stories within the Flandern Isles that there's these 3 crows that stalk the island, and that those crows are the spirits of these 3 men. Or in some cases, quite literally, the men got turned into birds for some reason. The area of the Flandern Isles is notorious for its legends of sea monsters. Several stories of mermaids and sirens that lure men to their death, as well as creatures known as sprites, which I am not kidding, will hop onto your boat and then drown you if you do not beat them in a rhyming duel. So these are underwater mermaid things that rap battle you or else they kill you. I don't even have to add anything to that. That speaks for itself. I'm moving on. The story that I love to go with, and the one that terrifies me so much, is perhaps the men were being judged or some form of supernatural occurrence was happening within that fog that settled over the island. Think about it, a fog so thick that no one on the island could see them on shore, and within that fog themselves they reported there being severe thunderstorms that got to the point that they were praying and crying and everything else before he said God is over all, and they all disappeared off the face of the earth. Now, do I believe in that? Probably not, but I really want to. And similar to my Mary Celeste thing, what are you gonna do? Tell me no? That's no fun. See, it's stories like that that captured the mystique of the ocean, or the idea that no matter how much we discover about it, there's still so many ridiculously unanswered questions that there's never going to be a way for us to bottle it up and then figure out every piece of it. Because just like with the Elaine Moore Lighthouse, how do you naturally explain that? Other than the fact that a giant mist came and settled in, put the men through the trials of God and turbulent storms before they went to the West Dock and the Kraken destroyed it as it dragged the men into the sea. I really don't see what the hang-up with you believing it is. And what's so interesting to me about this is these ideas of ghost ships and ocean creatures are by no means anything new. Think of stories like the Flying Dutchman, old legends of ghost ships that would pass you, and then on deck there would be the souls of sailors who have died who ask you to give a message to their loved ones back at home. Isn't that just horrific in like the best way? Or the fact that every old world nation had pictures of giant sea serpents drawn off the map, with the idea that if you go too far off the map, there will be monsters. Or the idea that every religion, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, all of it, have some legend of a giant leviathan that lurks beneath the waters. Or legends like the Kraken. Don't we think it's weird that for literally hundreds of years, every single civilization had stories of this giant octopus thing that would attack ships and then kill sailors and wreck the ship? And we were all collectively like, haha, weren't those guys idiots? And then, you know, like 30 years ago, we found colossal squids that are like the size of 4 school buses. And we're like, oh, look, they are real. But aren't those stories stupid and fake? Haha, they definitely didn't kill people. In some cases, with things like that, we understand the colossal squid to exist, and we understand them to be ferocious predators. It's almost comforting to think that situations like the Mary Celeste could be caused by something so explainable. It's as if we would be fortunate to wrap our heads around these paranormal instances that occur. And I could go into a whole rant now about the Bermuda Triangle, but I'll be honest, that's like surface level stuff, like compasses work funny here, like we're down here, we're way past that. And way past that, we can get into the modern stories of sea monsters being found. Like for example, in 1848 there was a British naval ship known as the Daedalus. The entire crew of the Daedalus attested the same story of seeing a 100-foot long massive sea serpent off of the side of their ship. They said it slithered along the side of the ship before diving underwater. There are several drawings and depictions put together of what this creature looked like. And if you think for some reason the entire crew was just high and had no idea what they're talking about, the United States brig known as the Daphne also saw the exact same thing, and they didn't only see it within the same month, they fired their guns at it and chased it down, saying that it was a giant ocean monster. So you have two different militaries, both full of very experienced crewmen, who one of them shot at it and then tried to run it down. And historians have said that it was probably a whale. I hate that. That makes me more upset than anything. Whenever there's a story like this, people can't just be like, oh, I guess we'll never know. They give it the stupidest explanation. Like, yeah, 400 experienced crewmen who have, you know...
Catch you later.